The champagne was still fizzing in the glasses. The wedding cake stood 5 tiers tall, decorated with real white roses flown in from Amsterdam. 240 guests sat in gilded chairs, fanning themselves with embossed programs that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Everything was perfect. The most talked about wedding of the year had just ended, and Billionaire CEO Ethan Caldwell, 34, had just kissed his bride. But in less than 4 hours, that same man would be sitting on the marble floor of his penthouse bathroom, shaking so hard he could barely hold his phone. Because what he was about to discover, on his wedding night, would not just destroy his marriage, it would destroy everything he thought he knew about his entire life. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now, just the word roses, if you're someone who believes that money cannot protect you from what God has already written for your life. Because this is proof. Part 1. The Golden Boy. A man who had everything. Ethan Caldwell did not grow up rich. That is the first thing you need to understand about him, because it explains everything about the kind of man he became and everything about the choice he made on that wedding day. He grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a 2-bedroom house that always smelled like cinnamon and old books. His mother, Carol Caldwell, was a school librarian, quiet, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who pressed wildflowers between the pages of novels and left little notes in Ethan's lunchbox every single day until he left for college. His father, Raymond Caldwell, worked at a car parts factory for 22 years. He came home every evening smelling like machine oil, sat in the same green armchair every night, and watched the news with a cold glass of water. Never alcohol, never soda, just water. They were not wealthy people, but they were good people, and Ethan never forgot that. What Ethan had that money could not buy him was a mind that worked like a machine. He could see patterns where other people saw chaos. He could walk into a failing business and within 20 minutes identify the 3 exact reasons it was bleeding money. His high school math teacher once told Raymond Caldwell at a parent-teacher night, "Sir, I don't know what you're feeding that boy, but he sees numbers the way Mozart heard music." Ethan got a full scholarship to MIT. He graduated top of his class. By 26, he had launched his first tech company, a logistics software firm that he sold 3 years later for $47 million. He took that money and invested it. By 31, he was worth over $300 million. By 34, the year of the wedding, Forbes had placed him on their 40 under 40 list for the 2nd consecutive year, with a personal net worth estimated at $1.2 billion. Ethan Caldwell had become, by every measurable standard, one of the most successful self-made men in America. And yet, the one thing his money had never been able to buy him was the feeling that he truly belonged somewhere. He had houses in 4 cities, a private jet, a personal chef, a security detail that followed him everywhere. But at night, in whichever of his 4 houses he happened to be sleeping in, there was always this quiet, hollow feeling, like a room with expensive furniture, but no warmth. Like a photograph with perfect lighting, but no soul. His therapist, yes, even billionaires have therapists, said it was because Ethan had never truly processed the one wound from his childhood that he never talked about, the fact that he was adopted. Pause here, because this detail, this one quiet detail that Ethan rarely mentioned in interviews, is the key that unlocks everything that follows. Drop a comment. Did you already sense where this is going? Type, "I knew it," if you did. Type, "Not yet," if you didn't. Let's see who saw it coming. Carol and Raymond Caldwell adopted Ethan when he was just 18 months old. They told him when he was 7, sat him down at the kitchen table with hot chocolate, and explained it gently, lovingly, the way only truly good parents can. Ethan cried, not from sadness exactly, but from confusion he couldn't put words to at 7 years old, a feeling of being a puzzle piece that almost fits, but not quite. He loved Carol and Raymond, completely, genuinely. They were his parents in every way that mattered. But somewhere deep inside, in a place he rarely visited, there was always a question he had never been able to fully answer. Who am I really? Where did I come from? Does anyone out there share my blood? He had hired a private investigator at 28 to look into his biological origins. The investigator came back 6 weeks later with a thin folder and an apologetic expression. Dead end. The adoption had been handled through a private agency that had since closed. Records were either sealed, lost, or destroyed. His biological mother's name had been redacted from every document. His biological father? Unknown. Ethan had closed the folder, put it in the bottom drawer of his desk, and never opened it again. He told himself he had made peace with it. He had not. Part 2. The Woman in the White Dress. Her name was Sophia. Ethan met Sophia Renee Beaumont on a charity gala in Chicago on a Thursday evening in October 2 years before the wedding. She was standing near the far end of the room, beside a large window that overlooked Lake Michigan. She was wearing a deep burgundy dress and holding a glass of sparkling water. Not wine, not champagne, just water. And she was completely ignoring the party around her, looking out at the lake with an expression that Ethan would later describe as the most honest face in a room full of performers. He walked over. She did not immediately turn to look at him. He stood beside her for a full 10 seconds before she acknowledged him, and when she finally turned, she said, not, "Oh my God, you're Ethan Caldwell," the way most people did, but simply, "The lake looks different at night, doesn't it? Like it's keeping secrets." Ethan Caldwell, a man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking, had absolutely nothing to say for 3 full seconds. Then he laughed, and she laughed, and that was that. Sophia Renee Beaumont was 31 years old. She was a pediatric surgeon at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. She had grown up in Charleston, South Carolina, in a comfortable middle-class family, her father a retired professor of literature, her mother a florist. She was brilliant, warm, slightly sarcastic in a way that made you smile, and completely unimpressed with wealth. The first time Ethan took her to his penthouse in New York, she looked around slowly, nodded once, and said, "It's very clean. Do you actually live here or just visit?" He fell completely, utterly, irreversibly in love with her. He dated for 14 months. Then Ethan proposed on a rainy Tuesday night in Chicago, not in a restaurant, not on a rooftop with a photographer hidden somewhere, but in her kitchen floor while she was making scrambled eggs, wearing an oversized sweater with absolutely no makeup on. He got down on one knee on her kitchen floor and said, "I have everything in the world except a home. You are the only place I have ever felt at home. Will you let me stay?" She cried so hard she burned the eggs. She said yes. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. Have you ever met someone and felt an instant, unexplainable connection? Not romantic necessarily, just a feeling like you already know this person, like something in you recognizes something in them. Type your answer below, because Ethan felt that way about Sophia from the very first moment, and later, much later, he would understand exactly why. The wedding was planned over 10 months. It was held at the Rosewood Manor estate in Virginia, a historic property with rolling green lawns, a lake, and a grand ballroom with chandeliers that had hung there since 1887. 240 guests, live orchestra, white roses from Amsterdam, a dress that took 4 months to make. Sophia walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and Ethan, standing at the altar in his perfectly tailored suit, surrounded by all his wealth and success and power, felt his eyes fill with tears for the first time since his mother Carol had passed away 3 years earlier. The ceremony was perfect. The reception was perfect. The first dance was perfect. And then, the night came. Part 3. The wedding night. The envelope. It was 11:47 p.m. The guests had gone. The caterers had cleared the last of the tables. The estate was quiet now, except for the sound of crickets and the distant sound of the last few staff members finishing up. Ethan and Sophia had retreated to the private bridal suite, a separate cottage on the estate's grounds, decorated with hundreds of candles and white roses. Their luggage was already there, packed for their honeymoon flight to the Maldives the following morning. Sophia had gone into the bathroom to change. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, loosening his tie, smiling to himself. This strange, warm, complete feeling in his chest, the hollow feeling, the one that had lived inside him for years, was gone, replaced by something real, something solid. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket to take out his phone. His fingers touched something else, an envelope. He frowned. He did not remember putting an envelope in his pocket. He pulled it out slowly. It was a plain white envelope, sealed, with no name on the outside. Just 3 words written in careful, deliberate handwriting. You must know." Ethan stared at it. His heart had already started beating slightly faster, the way your body sometimes knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. He opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper and 2 photographs. He unfolded the paper first. It was a letter, handwritten, and it began with these words: "My name is Margaret Ellis. I am 71 years old, and I am dying of cancer. I have kept this secret for 34 years because I was a coward. I cannot die with it. What I am about to tell you will hurt you. I am sorry, but you deserve the truth more than I deserve peace." Ethan's hands were completely still. He kept reading. "In 1991, a young woman came to the private adoption agency where I worked as an administrator. Her name was Diana. She was 22 years old, unmarried, and she was in a desperate situation. She had just given birth, not to 1 child, but to 2. Twins, a boy and a girl. She could not keep both. She could barely keep 1. She was poor, alone, and frightened. She begged us to find good homes for both children. She made us promise, she made me promise personally, that the children would never find each other. She said it was for their protection. She said their father was a dangerous man, and if he ever found them, he would use them against each other. The boy was adopted by a family in Dayton, Ohio. His name was changed to Ethan. The girl was adopted by a family in Charleston, South Carolina. Her name was changed to Sophia. The paper fell from Ethan's hands. He did not move. He did not breathe. From the bathroom, he could hear the sound of water running. Sophia humming softly to herself. The small, ordinary, devastating sound of his wife getting ready for their wedding night. "Stop. I need you to breathe with me for a second, because I need to ask you something in the comments right now. What would you do in this moment? You have just married the love of your life, the most perfect person you have ever known, and you are holding a piece of paper that says she is your twin sister. Do you say nothing and live with it? Do you tell her immediately? Do you even believe it? Comment below. This is important, because what Ethan did next in the next 60 seconds will shock you. Part 4. The next 60 seconds. The decision. Ethan picked the paper back up. His hands were shaking now, not violently, but with that fine, continuous tremor that comes not from cold, but from shock. The kind of shaking your body does when it is processing something that your brain is refusing to accept. He looked at the 2 photographs. The first was a faded photograph of 2 babies, newborns, lying side by side in a hospital bassinet. On the back, in the same careful handwriting, Diana's twins, August 14, 1991, Regional General Hospital, Memphis, Tennessee. Ethan's birthday was August 14, 1991. He had been born in Memphis, Tennessee. He knew this from the one document the investigator had managed to retrieve, a partial birth record with just enough information to confirm the city and the date. The second photograph was more recent. It was taken from a distance, but clearly showed a man and a woman walking together in what appeared to be a park. The woman had long dark hair and was laughing at something. The man had his arm around her shoulders. It took Ethan 4 full seconds to realize that the 2 people in the photograph were himself and Sophia. Someone had been watching them, and Margaret Ellis, whoever she was, had known about them long enough to have them photographed together. Ethan looked at the letter again. There was a phone number at the bottom, and one final line. "I have the original DNA records. I have the adoption documents with Diana's real name. I have everything. I will send it all to you when you call. I am sorry, Ethan. I am so deeply sorry. Please do not hate her. She did not know. Neither did you." The bathroom door opened. Sophia stepped out. She was wearing a simple white silk robe, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her face clean and soft in the candlelight. She was smiling at him, that particular smile she had that always made him feel like the luckiest man alive, the smile that crinkled slightly at the corners of her eyes. She saw his face. The smile disappeared. "Ethan, what's wrong?" He looked at her, and in that moment, staring at the woman he had just married, the woman he loved more than he had ever loved anyone else, the woman who had finally made that hollow feeling go away, he made a decision. He folded the letter. He put it back in the envelope. He put the envelope in the inside pocket of his jacket. He stood up. He said, "Nothing. I'm fine. Just tired." He smiled, and he spent his entire wedding night lying next to his bride, staring at the ceiling, completely silent, while she slept peacefully beside him. Part 5. The morning after. A man coming apart. At 5:14 a.m., while Sophia was still sleeping, Ethan got up quietly, took his jacket from the chair, went into the sitting room of the cottage, closed the door, and called the number on the letter. It rang 3 times. A woman answered. Her voice was old and thin, the voice of someone who had very little strength left. "I wondered if you would call," she said. "Is it true?" Ethan said. His voice was barely above a whisper. A long silence. "Yes." "You have proof?" "I have everything. DNA tests conducted 6 months ago. I hired an investigator and used samples from your public appearances, a coffee cup, a water bottle. I know that was wrong, but I needed to be sure before I destroyed 2 lives. The results are conclusive. You and Sophia Beaumont share 100% mitochondrial DNA. You are twins, Ethan. Full biological twins." Ethan sat down on the floor. He did not choose to sit on the floor. His legs simply stopped holding him. "Why now?" he managed. "Why on my wedding night? Why not before the wedding?" Another silence. "I only found out about the wedding 3 weeks ago. I have been ill. I don't follow the news the way I used to. When I found out, I tried to reach you through your office, but I couldn't get through. I had my granddaughter deliver the envelope to one of your groomsmen yesterday morning. I told him it was a personal letter from an old friend of your father's. Does Sophia know?" "No. She has no idea. As far as I know, she has never investigated her own adoption." "What about our biological mother, Diana? Is she still alive?" The silence this time was the longest. "Diana passed away in 2019. Breast cancer. She never told anyone about the twins. She took the secret with her, or she thought she had. She did not know I had kept copies of everything." Ethan closed his eyes. "I will send you everything today by courier. I am truly sorry, Ethan. I know there is nothing I can say that makes this better. I could not let you live a lie. I could not die knowing you were living a lie." The call ended. Ethan sat on the floor of the cottage sitting room for 47 minutes. He could hear through the door the sound of Sophia beginning to stir awake. Comment below right now. Should Ethan tell Sophia the truth, or should he find a way to quietly end the marriage without ever telling her why? Think carefully before you answer, because there is no good option here. Every road leads to pain. The only question is what kind. Type "tell her" or "protect her" in the comments. I want to see which side you're on.
Part 6. The Unbearable Weight. 14 days. They went to the Maldives. For 14 days, Ethan Caldwell, one of the most powerful men in America, performed the greatest act of his life. Not in a boardroom, not in front of investors or journalists or competitors, but on a private island in the Indian Ocean, with turquoise water and white sand, and a woman who loved him completely. He laughed at her jokes. He held her hand on the beach. He had breakfast with her every morning on their private deck and watched her eat her fruit and read her book and push her sunglasses up her nose the way she always did, and he felt a love so profound and so impossible and so utterly, completely wrong that it was like swallowing glass. Every day he told himself he would tell her. Every night he could not do it, Because here is what no one tells you about a situation like this. There is no script. There is no right way to sit down across from the person you love most in the world and say words that will shatter them. Words that will take everything beautiful that existed between you and turn it into something that cannot be named. He called Margaret Ellis 3 more times from the Maldives. She had sent the courier package to his New York office as promised. He had asked his most trusted assistant to lock it in his personal safe. He told no one else. On the 12th day of the honeymoon, Sophia looked up from her book at breakfast and said, "Ethan, talk to me." He looked at her. "Something is wrong," she said quietly. "It has been wrong since our wedding night. I can feel it. I know you. What is it?" He looked at this woman, his wife, He could not finish the thought. "I've had some difficult business news," he said. "Nothing I want to burden you with on our honeymoon. I'm handling it." She studied him for a long time. Sophia Beaumont, Sophia Caldwell now, was not a woman who was easily fooled. She had spent years reading frightened children in hospital beds, learning to understand what was being communicated beneath the surface of what was being said. She knew he was lying, but she also loved him, and love sometimes gives people space they should not be given. "Okay," she said, and went back to her book. 2 days later, they flew home. Part 7. The envelope in the safe. The truth has a weight. Part 7. The envelope in the safe. The truth has a weight. Back in New York, Ethan retrieved the package from his safe. He sat alone in his study at 2 in the morning, the whole penthouse dark except for the lamp on his desk, and he went through everything Margaret Ellis had sent. It was all there. The original adoption intake forms from 1991 bearing Diana's full name, Diana Marie Whitfield, and the names of the 2 babies listed simply as Baby Boy Whitfield and Baby Girl Whitfield. Both born at 4:17 a.m. and 4:44 a.m. respectively at Regional General Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. The DNA analysis report, 8 pages of technical documentation followed by one clean, simple conclusion printed in bold, probability of full sibling relationship 99.998%. A photograph of Diana Whitfield from what appeared to be a social media profile, a woman in her late 40s with dark hair and dark eyes, and a face that when Ethan looked at it felt like looking in a mirror from a great distance. And a handwritten note from Margaret that said simply, "She was a good woman who made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. She loved you both. She just could not keep you. Please try to forgive her." Ethan sat with all of it spread across his desk. He thought about what it would mean to tell Sophia. He thought about what it would mean not to tell her. He thought about the 14 months of dating, the proposal on the kitchen floor, the 10 months of planning, the wedding, the dress, the roses from Amsterdam. He thought about Sophia's father walking her down the aisle, a man who had raised a daughter he had been told was his biological child from birth, but who had also adopted her and simply never told her, apparently not knowing himself that she had been adopted, having been deceived by his own wife who handled the adoption privately and passed the baby off as her own pregnancy. That detail, buried in the adoption documents, was perhaps the cruelest of all. Sophia's mother had died when she was 19. She had never told her daughter the truth. She had gone through her entire life not knowing she was adopted. Hold on. I need to pause here and ask you something different. Sophia's mother knew. She knew she was adopted. She had 30+ years to tell her, and she chose not to. She died without saying a word. Do you think she was protecting Sophia, or was she protecting herself? Comment. Protecting her daughter, or protecting herself? This matters, because the question of who deserves to know the truth and who has the right to keep it is at the center of everything that follows. Part 8. The Confrontation. She already knew something. 3 weeks after they returned from the Maldives, on a Sunday morning, Ethan asked Sophia to sit down with him. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same kind of ordinary kitchen table moment where life's most extraordinary conversations happen. He put the envelope on the table. He slid it toward her. She looked at it. Then she looked at him. "What is this?" "I need you to read it, and then I need you to know that I love you, that nothing that is in that envelope changes what I feel. But I cannot move forward without you knowing it." Sophia looked at him for a long time. Then she opened the envelope. He watched her read. He had imagined this moment dozens of times over the previous weeks. He had imagined screaming, fainting, rage, hysteria. What Sophia actually did was far more devastating than any of those things. She read in complete silence. She went through every document, every photograph, the DNA analysis, Margaret's letter. She turned each page slowly and carefully, the way she approached everything, with the precise, methodical attention of a surgeon. When she finished, she put the last page down. She was quiet for so long that Ethan's heart was breaking in real time. Then she said, very quietly, "I always knew I was adopted." Ethan stared at her. "My mother told me when I was 12. She made me promise never to tell my father because he didn't know. She said the adoption was private and she had handled it alone, and she couldn't bear to hurt him." Sophia's voice was very steady. "I tried to find my birth mother once, when I was 25. A woman at the agency told me the records were sealed and the agency had closed. She said there was nothing to find." A pause. "She told me I was born in Memphis, Tennessee." Her eyes met his. "I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, Ethan." He could not speak. "I always felt..." She stopped, pressed her lips together, continued. "I always felt that I was born into the wrong story, like I was living in a life that fit me perfectly in every detail except one thing I could never name." Her voice broke slightly on the last word, just slightly. "And then I met you, and for the first time in my entire life, that feeling went away." The silence between them was the heaviest either of them had ever sat inside. "And now you're telling me," she said softly, "that the reason it went away is because I had finally found the one person in the world who was born into the same wrong story as me."
Part 9. What happens to love that cannot be love? The longest night. They sat at that kitchen table for 4 hours. They talked about everything. Diana, the twins, the adoption, the sealed records, the years of carrying quiet, separate loneliness without knowing the other person existed. They talked about their relationship, the 14 months of dating, the friendship before the romance, the strange, instantaneous ease they had always felt with each other, the way conversations between them had never felt like work, the way they could sit in silence together and it felt comfortable rather than empty. They understood now, with a clarity that was both beautiful and unbearable, exactly why. At one point, Sophia said, "Is it possible to grieve the loss of something that should never have existed?" And Ethan said, "I think that's the only thing we can do right now." They called their lawyers separately that afternoon. The annulment process, in a case with grounds this extraordinary, was relatively straightforward. Their attorneys handled everything with absolute discretion. A confidentiality agreement was signed by everyone involved: lawyers, Margaret Ellis, Ethan's assistant. The official statement released to the press 3 weeks later said simply that Ethan Caldwell and Sophia Beaumont had decided to part ways amicably and requested privacy. The tabloids speculated endlessly: infidelity, financial disputes, incompatibility. They never came close to the truth.
Before we get to the final part of this story, I need to ask you the hardest question yet. Ethan and Sophia had a love that was real. Whatever the biology, whatever the truth, what they felt for each other was genuine. The warmth was real. The home he felt with her was real. If you were in their position and you discovered this truth after falling in love, do you think you could ever truly stop loving that person? Comment below. This is not a judgment question. This is a human question. Answer honestly. Part 10. After. What remains when everything falls away? 6 months passed. Ethan threw himself into work the way he always had when he needed to stop thinking. 3 acquisitions, a new fund, a philanthropic initiative focused on adoption reform, specifically on the sealing of records that prevented adoptees from accessing their own biological histories. He worked with a team of lawyers and advocates to push for legislation in 6 states that would give adult adoptees the unconditional right to access their original birth certificates. He funded the effort personally. He testified before a state Senate committee. He did not explain publicly why this issue mattered to him. He knew why it mattered to him. Sophia went back to her work at Northwestern Memorial. She operated, she saved children's lives. She was, by all accounts, as brilliant and composed as she had always been. They did not speak for 4 months. Then one evening, Ethan's phone rang. He did not recognize the number. He almost didn't answer. He answered. "It's me," Sophia said. A long silence. "I know," Ethan said. "I've been in therapy every week since. My therapist says I need to..." A pause. "She says that what happened to us is one of the most complex grief situations she has ever encountered. She says the love was real. She says the relationship was real. She says what has to change is the form, not the feeling." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. "It means," Sophia said, "that I lost a husband, but I don't have to lose a brother." The silence that followed was different from all the other silences. It was not heavy. It was not hollow. It was the silence of something settling, something finding, after a very long and painful journey, the shape it was always supposed to have. "I don't know how to do this," Ethan said honestly. "Neither do I," Sophia said. "But I know how to figure things out. So do you. It's what we both do." Final part. The truth about destiny. What this story is really about. 1 year after the wedding that changed everything, Ethan Caldwell sat in a quiet restaurant in Chicago, not a flashy one, just a small Italian place near the hospital, and had dinner with Sophia Beaumont, not his wife, not his ex-wife, his sister. They were awkward at first, formally polite in the way that people are when they are relearning each other from scratch. But then Sophia knocked over her water glass, the way she always did, because she was perpetually clumsy with glasses, and they both burst out laughing at the same time, and somehow in that laughter, something old and true surfaced. The ease, the recognition, the feeling of being known. It was still there. It had never been about romance, they understood now. It had been about recognition. The deep, cellular, ancient recognition of shared blood finding itself after 34 years of separation. Their love had never been wrong. It had just been misread. It had been the right feeling wearing the wrong clothes. Over the following year, Ethan learned that Sophia was just as terrifyingly good at Scrabble as he was. That she, like him, put too much sugar in her coffee. That Sophia had Diana's hands, long fingers, square nails, and that Ethan had Diana's eyes. They flew to Memphis together and visited Diana's grave. They stood there for a long time without saying anything. Ethan put a single white rose on the headstone, not because he had forgiven everything, but because forgiveness is something that happens not all at once. It is something you practice, slowly, the way you practice anything that matters. He thought about Carol Caldwell, his adoptive mother, the wildflowers pressed in novels, the notes in the lunchbox. He thought about Raymond Caldwell, smelling like machine oil, sitting in the green armchair with a glass of water, watching the news. He thought about the fact that family is not only blood, it is also the people who choose you, the people who press wildflowers in books for you, the people who walk you down the aisle, the people who sit with you at kitchen tables and tell you the truth, even when it costs everything. And he thought about a letter from a dying woman who could have taken a secret to her grave, who chose instead to give two people the truth, even when the truth was the hardest possible gift. Last question for the comments. Margaret Ellis, the woman who revealed the truth, do you think she did the right thing? She waited until their wedding night. She caused enormous pain. She upended two lives. But she also gave them something no amount of money could buy: the knowledge of who they really were. Type "she did right" or "she should have stayed silent" below. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something, share it. Because somewhere out there is someone who needs to be reminded that the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. Subscribe if you are new, drop a like if you stayed until the end, and I will see you in the next story.